Hey guys, I thought I would do yet another outside video. You seemed to like it yesterday, so I'm back with another, except this time I'm sitting down because it's a really nice day and I thought I should enjoy some of the sun. Anyway, I wanted to speak today about this idea that I've been having. It's an idea about Tesla really, but I suppose it's the EV industry, the EV market as a whole. So obviously Tesla's come along and they've completely disrupted the automotive industry. You know, they've injected EVs like no one else has ever done, and no one else has actually done since Tesla. They've really made EVs a thing. I think we have a lot to thank for Tesla in that shift that we've seen. And they've done really well. You know, they've been really successful, and I think they'll continue to do that. I think they'll continue to get market share in the EV industry, and it will be great. But I have this idea that a lot of people basically think that the EVs will basically kill off ICE vehicles, internal combustion engines, completely. So people think that because Tesla is doing so well and other companies will come up and maybe do well, maybe people don't think that, whatever, we will see a complete shift where in however many years to come, no one will have internal combustion engine cars. Completely wiped out, dead, and everyone will have EVs. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I actually see a shifting dynamic, a reversal. But let me explain what I mean. So if we go back however many years, we look to the past, what we saw is that internal combustion engine cars, and I'm just going to call them ICE vehicles from this point on because, you know, make my life a little bit easier, they were the majority. They were what pretty much everybody had if they had a car, like 99.99% of people. And, you know, gradually over time that's coming down and down and down because more people are making the switch to a hybrid vehicle or a fully electric vehicle. But for a long time, that is what happened. Most people, the majority of the market was ICE vehicles. And this is because, well, firstly, they were just what was invented at the time, and that was what was normal, common and popular. But also EVs, electric vehicles, were very expensive for a long time. And this meant that the only people that actually owned EVs were those that were rich and could afford it, or those that were really particularly interested in electric vehicles. And I think EVs for quite a while has been all about a status symbol, and that status is now shifting. So like I said, for a long time people that owned EVs were a very niche part of the market, a very select few that maybe saw them as a status symbol, were particularly interested in the technology, or just had the money that they could afford to have this new vehicle on the market, this new kind of car. But now we're seeing that shift happen, where actually, as we go further and further forward, we are seeing that the majority is shifting. So it's moving from the majority of people having an ICE vehicle to actually, and we're still in this shift, you know, we're not there yet. We're nowhere near at 99% completion yet. But we're seeing this shift where people are now adopting EVs and they are making the transition from having an ICE vehicle to having an electric vehicle. And like I said, people think that that means that ICE vehicles are going to be completely wiped out and there won't be a place in society for them. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I actually think this shift, this reversal will now happen, whereby ICE vehicles will become that teeny percentage of the market that is reserved for people that are very rich, that want the status symbol, or that are very interested in maybe vintage car collectors, you know, them sort of people. And why do I think this is going to happen? Well, it's the same reason that vinyl records are still popular with some people. We are now in the world of digital music. Everyone can get any song, any album they want at the click of their fingertips, on their phone, on their laptop. They do not need vinyl records. But does that mean that vinyl records have been completely wiped out and they have no place in society anymore? No, it doesn't. Why? Because people still like them. People like to preserve a bit of the past. There is still a place for them. Are they the majority? No. You know, do most people get their music from vinyl records? No. And that's exactly what I think we're going to see with EVs and ICE vehicles. I just think that gradually ICE vehicles will become a smaller, more luxury part of the market. And like I said, they will be reserved for collectors, people that enjoy the sensory experience of actually driving a gas vehicle, and for people maybe that have a lot of money and can afford to keep one, because that is important. What we're going to see, and what we're already seeing, is a shift in the cost. For a long time, EVs have been very expensive, but that is gradually changing. It will change so that actually having an ICE vehicle is the way more expensive option. Not just buying that vehicle, but also keeping it and running it. This shift is actually happening mainly thanks to Tesla, because what Tesla has been able to do is they have been able to make electric vehicles accessible, affordable and preferable. And that last one, well, affordability and accessibility are very, very important. Obviously, any uptake in the market is reliant on those two fundamental principles, but the preferable thing is really, really big. People nowadays want EVs. If we think about the Model Y, the Tesla Model Y, that is one of the best-selling vehicles, the best-selling vehicle, like, out of all vehicles. That's not just the best-selling EV, that's the best-selling vehicle. So people are opting for an EV instead of an ICE vehicle. Then we look at the Cybertruck, which is obviously very new, a very innovative vehicle. We could talk about that all day. But recently we learned that actually the Cybertruck has been doing really, really well in the EV pickup market. I think what we're going to see over time is that's going to expand, and the pickup industry as a whole, not just EVs, is going to see Cybertruck in the lead. So you might be disagreeing with me. You might be thinking one of two things. Either you think that actually ICE vehicles will be completely wiped out by EVs and you're really, really pro EVs and you don't see a place for ICE vehicles anymore. Like I said, I do think the majority will be EVs, but I don't see ICE vehicles getting wiped out completely. Or number two, you are thinking, no, that's never going to happen. ICE vehicles will always be the majority. EVs will cap itself at a certain market share and it won't really go anywhere else. So let me explain why I think EVs will actually become the majority of the market. The first reason is the technological advancements and the technological advantages that EVs offer in particular. The second one is actually they are becoming cheaper to buy and maybe more importantly, cheaper to run. Charging your Tesla or your electric vehicle compared to filling it up with petrol or gas if you're in America, very, very different. You can look at the cost savings there. And number three as well, I think we've just got to think about the somewhat natural progression along the whole idea of economies of scale and adoption curves. We do see things, thinking about an adoption curve here, is sort of an S curve, and at the very start it's very slow. It's not adopted quickly. Why is that? Well, it's because it's very expensive. When things aren't going by economies of scale, they are expensive to manufacture. That naturally means you capture a smaller amount of the market and it takes some time. At some point there is an inflection point. So you go like this, you hit the inflection point, that is when manufacturing becomes cheaper because you've hit economies of scale, and bam, you start this big increase, and that is where we are now. And then naturally again you hit maturation point at some point, saturation, maturation, whatever you want to call it, completely normal. And I think that curve is what we're currently on with EVs. So when people say to me, okay, well, forget everything else that Tesla's doing, even just their EV portion, it's had its run, it's over. I don't agree. I think there's much more market share for EVs to expand into and Tesla to capture, but I guess that's a whole different video. So I guess one of the most important things by far for EVs to get widespread adoption is cost. Cost is really important because if you can bring the cost down, you naturally get exposure to a broader market. You naturally open yourself up to the average family with an average income being able to select an EV for their household car rather than having to select a Honda or something else that's maybe a car. I'm not going to claim I know everything about cars in different regions around the world, but a car that is basically a very standard family car. And the idea of cost all comes back down to production volume. You need production volumes to go up, which is going to come from the demand. Supply and demand is driving the entire market, any market, but as production volume goes up, the cost of manufacturing, of producing that item, in this case we're talking about an EV, comes down. The manufacturing gets cheaper, and production volume and handling production volume and actually handling manufacturing and economies of scale, this is where Tesla, specifically Tesla, absolutely excel. And this is one of the main reasons that I really don't see a lot of competition for them at the moment. Are there some competitors? Sure, of course, especially if we're looking over to the Chinese market. There are competitors there, and it would be very naive and very stupid of anyone to say that there's absolutely no competition in the EV market for Tesla. Do I think that there is very limited competition and that it's not really to be afraid of at the moment? Yes, I do. I don't think there's much there, and I don't think they're going to struggle. But anyway, let's just think about this. So this idea of actually having a mass affordable EV, maybe I won't even say mass affordable, I'll say a more affordable EV. Now, like I said, Tesla's been driving this for a very long time, and actually it's always been in their master plan. And this is really, really important to understand. Tesla's master plan part 1 came out in 2006. If any of you guys watching this actually saw that get released and you've been following Tesla since back then, do drop me a comment, because that's very interesting. But yeah, this has always been in Tesla's master plan since 2006. So in 2006, Elon made it very, very clear that he had some clear-cut goals for Tesla, and this would drive the entire mission and the entire trajectory of Tesla's entire history and future. So step 1 was to build an electric sports car. Then they wanted to use the money that they made from that sports car to actually then build a more affordable car, and then they wanted to use the money from that more affordable EV to make an even more affordable EV. Very, very simple in theory, very, very difficult to do in reality. And you might be thinking, well, that's really stupid. Why didn't they just make an affordable vehicle from the off and, you know, cut all this time delay? Why did they have to make a sports car and then wait for that and then make an affordable vehicle and then collect the money and do it this way? And this way, isn't Elon a really rich man? Why is it like this? But it had to be this way. And why is this? Well, there's actually some clear reasons. Number 1 is that Elon had money from his PayPal days. And with this money, he was reinvesting it to start other businesses, ones that we know about today. But back then he had money from PayPal, but he couldn't put crazy amounts of money, you know, into making a mass affordable EV from the off. Maybe he could, but he also thought that the chance of success as an EV startup was really, really low. When he looked around the market, which companies in America, which car companies in America were making money from their vehicles, were making decent money. You know, you had Ford, but you didn't really have that many others, really. And then to actually enter a completely new market, the EV market, very, very low chances of success, or at least that's what he thought at the time. You know, he's kind of proven that you can do that now, but it came with a lot of challenging milestones along the way, of course. He also realized that the chance of success, like I was saying, is very, very low. Therefore, he didn't want to actually risk anybody else's money. Now, I'm sure he could have got maybe more investment than he did, I don't really know, but he didn't want to risk anyone else's money. And also, he thought that if he made a lower volume of a vehicle, this turned out to be the Roadster vehicle, the sports car, if he made a more expensive but lower volume vehicle, then what he could do is he could have a simpler, cheaper factory to do this in. This would save costs. And then when you think about all that, it makes complete sense as to why he picked a sports car, because he knew he had to charge a certain amount in order to collect the money to then reinvest that to make a cheaper, more affordable EV in the future. You can't really charge that much for a standard car or a family SUV or whatever, so it had to be a sports car, really. Hence the birth of the Roadster, the original Roadster, which of course we are getting an updated version quite soon. And then came Master Plan 2. This came a decade after, in 2016. And the whole focus of this master plan, and you can go and read any of these, by the way, they're still very much available, and they're good to read and actually think, have they achieved what they set out to achieve? Because going off on a tangent here, if you can see evidence of that, then maybe you can put more trust that they can carry on solving what is seemingly impossible in the future. But Master Plan 2, 2016, the whole focus on that was actually to expand their EV line to address different market segments. So not just to stick with what they'd already done up until that point, but actually to expand the product line and look at other innovative ways that they can enter different vehicle industries. They also highlighted in that Master Plan 2 that they wanted to move towards autonomous vehicles, full self-driving capabilities, and they wanted to prove that that was 10 times safer than human driving, you know, manual driving. Which, if you think about how most people react to full self-driving now, can you imagine how loony people thought that Elon would have been and Tesla was back in 2016? They must have thought he was completely crazy. But has he started to achieve that? Yes, he has. And then we had Master Plan 3. This came in 2023, so this is the most recent published master plan. And this was quite different actually. If you go and look at it, it looks very different. It's very, very long-winded. It's not just a simple letter like the prior two. It's really in depth. But I suppose the premise of Master Plan 3 was all about this idea of renewable energy generation and storage. That was kind of what that one was focused on. Master Plan 4 is coming. Elon has announced that he is already working on it. So he's working on it right now. And we don't really know what it's going to be about. I think it's going to be talking about very much futuristic things that a lot of people are going to roll their eyes at. So it will have heavily about robotics, you know, Optimus, artificial intelligence, and this whole idea of autonomy. I think that's going to make the bulk of Master Plan 4. But of course, you know, we've got to wait and see. So going back to the original content of this video, and this is how I don't think there's going to be a replacement of ICE vehicles by EVs. I think actually we're going to see a shift happen, a reversal. So what EVs were 10, 20 years ago is going to be what ICE vehicles are in the future. Now, I can't definitively say when that point's going to be, whereby the minority is ICE vehicles. I don't know. None of us know. All we know is that EVs are being, the take rate of EVs are, the uptake rate is very, very high. They're capturing more and more of the market as time goes on. You can just go and speak to people in your normal life, just drive around. How many EVs do you see? How many Teslas do you see now compared to 2 months ago? How many, you know, in 4 months' time, have a look as well. I actually play a little game with myself. Whenever I'm on a long journey, like 20 minutes or longer, that's not really that long actually. I'm not the driver, you know, I'm not having to give the road my full attention. I like to have a little look around and count how many Teslas I actually go past in a given journey. And I've been doing this for a number of years, and I must say that it's really, really stepping up. I see 5, 6, 7, depending on the journey, obviously the journey length, each time I go out. Maybe 2 years ago, this might have been 1 or 2. That's a big increase, and that's just happening in my local area. That's happening everywhere. So not only do costs need to come down in order to continue with this adoption and to continue to get us to the point where we are going to see this reversal, but also there's other things that need to happen. Of course, the infrastructure needs to be in place to support this. Now, if we go back to the days of horse and cart being the main mode of transportation, you couldn't just have had, even if technology allowed it, you couldn't have just put a car in that society and expected it to work. Why? Because roads. You have to have the infrastructure in place to actually allow society to utilize that product that you're giving it. And the same thing is true for EVs. EVs, obviously, they have batteries in them, and then those batteries need charging. You don't just fill your car up with petrol or gas like you do with an ICE vehicle. You have to charge the battery. Okay, well, people have superchargers or EV chargers at home. Great. If you only have that, and they're very sporadically placed around the UK or around America or wherever you are from, you have this fear, anxiety creep in, and this is what's hindered the uptake of EVs for a very, very long time. This whole notion that, you know, I like EVs, you know, I would make the switch, I would. They're quite nice, they've got a good technology, I like them, I really like Teslas, but I can't make that switch because I don't want to be stuck in the middle of nowhere with no way to charge. Range anxiety. The infrastructure with chargers are now, I would say they're in place. I would say it's in place, and I would say it's only going to continue to expand. Again, you can look on the Tesla website in particular, and there's this map view that you can get where you can see where all of the chargers are located around the UK or wherever you live. And I must say the red dots are so frequent now. So more basically, it's becoming more common that you have a Tesla supercharger or a different charger very close to you. So you don't have to worry about getting stuck 20 minutes into your drive and realizing, you know, you should probably charge at home if you're going to run out within 20 minutes. But, you know, getting however long into your journey and then realizing you don't actually have enough charge to go anywhere else and you're freaking out, you've got family, you've got young kids in the back, what am I going to do? Days of that are over. The actual vehicles themselves, the technology within the vehicles is allowing the range to actually be extended. So Tesla in particular have vehicles now where the range is really, really impressive. So again, paired with the infrastructure of the superchargers with the actual range capacity of the vehicle itself, it's looking really, really promising. Now, naturally, this market is continuing to expand. Lots of people are making the shift, like I keep saying. And as more and more people do this, I think Tesla will increase their market share. They're already doing really well. I don't think this is going to slow down anytime soon. But I also don't think that Tesla will get 100% of the EV market ever. I don't think that's going to be the case. And I don't think we should be, worried if that isn't the case. Will they get the majority of the market share, or a significant portion, I should say, in different geographical areas around the world? Yes, I think they will. But here's the thing. They won't be the only ones around. And what we're going to see, and we're already seeing, is that actually along this journey of other companies thinking, right, EVs are serious. We need to do something. We need to have, really nice EVs to offer. Loads of those companies, legacy or startups, will die off. They will simply die off, because what Tesla, and Tesla's one of the only ones, maybe BYD as well, but looking not including the Chinese market, just think about the American market maybe, or the European market, it's really, really clear that Tesla has really fine-tuned the ability to make money, to make profit from EVs. And you can't sniff or turn your nose up at that, because so many big companies have failed to do that. Big companies that have been around for decades, that people really trust, that people think they would definitely do better than Tesla if they tried. Let me tell you, they have tried, they are trying, and they are not doing well at this. And that is because producing an EV requires a lot of technology awareness, and the legacy companies are very, very good at producing the traditional ICE vehicles, but actually taking that knowledge and transferring it over to an EV doesn't work. You need to start again, ground zero. There is a lot of years ahead for these companies to be able to even get to a point where their EV is making money, let alone get to a point where they are outselling or doing better than Teslas. Now, going off on a bit of a tangent here quickly, I think this is important to realise. As a customer or a person in society that has no interest in investing into Tesla, you kind of have your pick. You could go with a Ford EV, you could go with a Volkswagen EV, you could go with a Tesla EV. You just have your pick, right? You pick depending on which car you like, what's suitable for your family, your lifestyle, the costs, the technology, all these things come into it. And ultimately, you decide what's best for you. And we could talk about whether Tesla are the best, different video. Anyway, but as an investor, it gets very, very different, because suddenly you see this whole different side of it. You don't just see, okay, well, people have the choice. These companies, they might be selling EVs, but they're not making money on them. They're actually burning money. They're having to take money from their internal combustion engine product lineup, throw it into their EV lineup, and then they're losing money on it. That is not a sustainable business. You can't keep doing that year and year and year and it actually go well. So I think companies like Ford, they might have a chance at surviving in the EV world, because Ford is led by Jim Farley, and I think he's a really open-minded guy, and I think he's doing wonderful things with actually moving towards that change. But there are many other companies that are already dying and that will continue to die because of this shift. And that's natural, that's what happens. But it's also really important to realise that at the time that this happens, at the time where there is a really, really big EV market, and there are multiple players in this, and Tesla is just one, whether they have the majority of the market share or not, Tesla at that point, whenever that comes, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever, Tesla at that point isn't even trying to compete in that industry anymore. This is what you've got to understand. By the time we get to that point, they're not even playing this game of selling EVs. They are getting the majority of their money from energy, from Optimus, from Robotaxi. They've shifted their revenue source completely to software as a service revenue, higher margins. They're looking at completely different total addressable markets. And at that point, you wouldn't even be worried about what the other EV players are doing. It won't even be a thing. So these are my thoughts. Like I said, I see a reversal happening. I don't see EVs replacing ICE vehicles completely. I see them taking up a smaller portion as time goes on, and then that will become more of a niche market reserved for people that are really interested in, savouring the ICE vehicle experience, and maybe collecting them. Maybe really rich people that want to keep these vehicles going. But the majority of people, the average person with a family, they'll have an EV. That's what I think is going to happen. But I do invite you to leave your thoughts on this, because most people don't think of it this way that I've heard. So it's kind of interesting to hear other people's opinions. And, if you want to come and talk about what else I see happening for Tesla in the future, or Palantir or any of these other companies, and you want to talk to a community and throw ideas, bounce ideas off, come and join the Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description below, and I'll try and pin it as a highlighted comment if I remember as well. But yeah, fantastic community over there. It's really, really building. We're talking every day, sharing ideas. I let people know every time I buy or sell, do portfolio updates. It's a good time. It's obviously up to you. You don't have to. I appreciate you watching this. But yeah, I'm going to continue my walk in the sunny UK whilst we've still got the sun. I'm sure it will disappear soon. I hope you have a great day wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and I'll see you in the next video.